Hello, and welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we encourage, support, and what else do we do? Christian indie
Inform?
writers on their journey to publication. I haven't done that in so long. I couldn't remember what the intro was.
It's
Oh
all
my
right.
goodness. I'm Christina Catane, and I write Christian fantasy. I write a lot of different stuff when it hits me, and I'm currently working on nonfiction. So I'm just all over the place. What about you?
I'm Jamie Hirschberger, and I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols. Although, to be honest, I could say I write for 15 minutes on Friday mornings. That's what I should be saying. That's
Right.
Hi, we've got Catherine Carroll watching us live today.
Yeah, and we've got writing shorts.
That's me.
Oh, that is you. Okay. Obviously, this is going to be an interesting podcast because I am so not used to being the host. But
Yeah.
here we go. We're going to get into our topic. And our topic today is the questions your story should answer and the ones it shouldn't.
Yeah. And this is really, we've been talking a lot about how to hook your reader, how to keep your reader reading, and how to keep your book from becoming a DNF. And I think that this is kind of like a logical progression in those steps. Wouldn't you say, Tina?
I would, yes. So every story is really a series of questions. That's kind of our premise for today, correct?
Yes. And it's really interesting. I often like to speak about the improv game that we played, and you talk about a writer who has a similar plotting practice, and we call it Once Upon a Time because of that. And what I would do is get the students on the stage, and they would say, once upon a time there were blank doing blank just like every other day, and suddenly would be the next prompt that they would use. And then after that, and suddenly, it was a series of because of that, the next thing happened. Because of that, the next thing happened. And can you recall off the top of your head, Tina, who's the writer that uses that similar
Well, Story Genius.
story
Lisa
genius? Okay.
Crone wrote a book called The Story Genius.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a template in my Scrivener that's a Story Genius template. And so it has cards for each scene. And at the bottom, the prompt at the very bottom of all this stuff that you fill out for your scene cards, it says, and because of that.
Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting because you think that an introduction to a book, the opening of your book, should be a bunch of info dumping. You expect it to be kind of a report of what is happening and what is going on, right?
Right.
But that's not what we're aiming for.
No,
We're aiming to be evocative, correct?
that's right. Because they don't need context before they care. They need a reason to care enough to want to know the context.
Right. And it seems like contradictory advice to me. And I think that if I'm listening and I'm an inexperienced writer, maybe I'm just gearing up for NaNoWriMo, or for whatever reason, I'm just catching up on these podcasts, or maybe I've never written a word and I'm just the spouse in the room listening to this advice that's being spouted. We often talk about starting with action so that your reader is engaged. But how can you give the reason to care and also start off with action? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it feels like
Yeah.
contradictory advice. Do you have anything to say about that?
Well, I would say that action for action's sake is not going to hook your reader. There
Oh,
needs to be a reason for the action. There needs to be a question at the end of the action. Is this character going to survive? Or, are they going to, I don't know, whatever the question is, like, you're the writer, you figure it out. But you can't just have action for no reason because you think you need to start your book with action. There has to be a reason. And there has to be a context, even if you're not going to give your reader the context in that moment.
Well, that makes a lot of sense to me because when you were even just describing sort of off the top of your head, the questions kind of just came naturally out of you talking about this activity happened, right?
Hmm.
And so I guess this is what we're talking about is kind of having an opening scene that it's asking a question, but at the same time, it's provoking your reader to have their own questions.
Right. Yeah. And I think that the reader's questions probably are more powerful than you actually presenting a question. Like,
Oh,
if
ooh.
you if you give a reader a reason to ask a question, what's going to happen next, like, is the biggest one, right? Or why
Mhm.
is this character doing this? Or what in the world is going on here? Or something, or who done it? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you provoke your character, your reader to ask those questions, that is really what you're going for.
I love that. Oh, we have Piper. Good morning, Piper.
And Catherine, hi guys.
Oh, and Catherine says that she uses a broad definition of action to start a book. Oh, she thinks of it more like dropping them in the middle of a scene where something has happened. Oh, that's good. It's funny. Have you ever walked into a room where a couple has been fighting
Yeah.
and like they're trying to pretend like they weren't, but you can still kind of feel something is
The
weird hanging
tension
around?
in the air, yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting how that works. Okay, so I think the point is in the first chapter, you don't want to be answering questions, right? Because why would they keep reading?
Right. Yeah, you need that something for them to say, "Wait, what's gonna happen next?" Like that to me, that's the biggest question that your reader should be asking. What's gonna happen? And that's gonna get them to turn the page.
Good morning, SL Perrin.
So let's talk about what every chapter should do.
Okay.
We talked about the opening, but let's talk about the chapters that follow.
Okay.
So every chapter should answer one question while creating another. What do you feel about that?
Hmm. I think that that is true. The reason why my brain kind of stuttered is because I'm just like, really? Do I do that? And then immediately I'm trying to like inventory my own work and how do I measure up to this? But it really does make sense. And it seems like it's always driven from that advice of what does your character want.
Right.
And so a little bit of that is attained while the next step in the journey, if we're just going to be very much, I don't know, hero's journey about it or whatever, maybe in a mystery setting, you get this answer, you get to talk to this suspect, but at the same time, you get this new information.
Right. Which raises more questions.
Yeah, it's kind of like a relay race.
Yeah.
So you
Right.
change one set of questions for another. Interesting.
Yeah, and see, and if you're using the Story Genius template, then you say, and because of that, and that informs what your next scene should be. Because the next scene happens because of the question in the first scene. And so
Mm.
then you're naturally answering the question that scene one brought up. Well, hopefully that answer just brings up more questions than answers. Especially
Yeah,
if you're writing a mystery, like, oh, I found this clue, but now I have all these other questions.
and mystery is perfect because I don't think these have to be like big giant cliffhangers that we're talking about.
Right.
Tina, your sound just suddenly went out. I don't know what happened. Hmm. Well, while
Oh,
Tina is waiting.
I
Oh,
don't
there
know.
she is.
For some reason, I muted myself. Probably because I was, doing the I talk with my hands. I'm married to
Man.
an Italian man, so now I talk with my hands. Um, what was I saying? Oh yeah, I'm reading a story right now where the lady's trying to solve a mystery, and then she finds the answer to a question that she has, and suddenly 3 or 4 more suspects pop up.
Oh, gee.
based on what she found. Like, oh, well, in this case, it could be da 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 da. And so now you've got to explore those 3 or 4 suspects that suddenly became suspects because of this clue that she found. And so then you're like, wait, I thought it was this, but then now you're like, okay, but could it be this? And so like it's really pulling out the questions in me as I'm reading, and it's making me want to keep reading.
Well, that's important because we talked before about momentum and how the book can really falter. I think that this practice can really help you through that murky middle that we covered in a few episodes ago. Just to maintain that momentum when you think of these questions as that relay race of this question is answered, but now what questions automatically piggyback on top of that one. And Jen is really a big fan of sitting down and making, does she call it a what if list? What if this happens and what if that happens?
Yeah.
And this is brought to mind as we're talking about this, because those are all questions that can then become also questions for your reader to answer in the course of the book.
Yeah.
How does your reader of your book handle what she's doing? And you're not feeling confused by all of that new information, or?
No, because it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like it makes sense that she thought one thing, it seemed cut and dry, but suddenly
Mm-hmm.
she's got this clue, and now there's these other people in the picture. And I think it's very Agatha Christie-ish, if you know what I mean. Like where you know, like if you've ever read her stuff, like Murder on the Orient Express, like
Mm-hmm.
they have this cast of characters that were all on the train together. And at first you think it's cut and dry, and then suddenly all the other characters have motives now too. And by the end of the book, you have whittle it down to the one that did it.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, because you don't want to confuse your characters. You want them to keep reading. The readers want continuity and progress. They don't want
Yes.
confusion. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's talk about big questions versus little questions.
Okay.
What's the difference? What do you think is the
Well,
difference between?
I think the big question is sort of what is driving like the whole novel. So,
Yeah,
like for a romance, how are we getting to happily ever after? Right?
yes,
For a mystery, who is the villain? Um, for any other type of a story, is the main character going to get what they want? I think those are the book's big questions.
right. And I think each chapter should bring you closer to the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Although sometimes you want to get them closer and pull them further away and get them closer. But the overarching arc of it should be getting closer.
And that's what the other littler questions are for driving those chapters, right?
Right. And those little questions drive you to the next page. So,
Well, I guess if you wanted to differentiate, so if we're going to talk about a romance being the big question, how are we getting to happily ever after? The little question will be like, is he ever going to find out that uh, man she was walking with was her brother who was missing? How are they going to overcome these disasters, as Jen likes to call them, that you've built in throughout the book to keep the reader reading? Those would be the little questions, right?
right. And of course there's the age-old examples of the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit kind of thing. The big question, will Frodo destroy the ring? Little questions, can they trust Gollum? Um, what are they going to do about this giant around the campfire? I can't remember that scene really clearly. Like there's all these little questions on the journey, but the big question is, are they going to reach the goal?
And as a side note, if you are someone who listens to the podcast frequently, you may remember that I had a fight with The Lord of the Rings because the book 2, the beginning was just too much backstory, and I just decided it was going to be DNF. Well, I decided to like skip ahead. And I literally skipped the track to where they started telling the story. And now I'm like in there. So as we use any of these Lord of the Rings references, I'm going to be like, Yeah, I want to know what's going to happen to this ring. Just so y'all know, I did not end up giving up on it. I just skipped all of the stuff I didn't want to read.
And we were talking about our opening earlier in this episode, and I was thinking about The Hobbit. The
Ah,
opening of The Hobbit really is kind of a longer description. You start out in your normal day. This is what normal life looks like, and then suddenly there's like something that changes that.
mm-hmm.
That was kind of long in The Hobbit. It was
Yes, and
interesting though, and his language that he used attracted me because it was very poetic, and I love like poetic, flowery prose, and that's kind of what it was, and so it pulled me in. But I can imagine some people going, like, "Can we get to the story?"
yes, and I believe that's a consequence of being a member of this modern age because back in the day when Lord of the Rings was fresh and new, this ideal of hobbits or little people or leprechauns or whatever you would want to say being in a novel would be enough to keep like a hobbit. What do you mean? What is this? What do you mean a man who's only 3 feet tall or whatever?
Yeah.
Unfortunately or fortunately, we live in a day and age where fantasy is been done over and over and over again. So there's no just freshness of it being a sci-fi novel anymore, or whatever you would want to call Lord of the Rings. Fantasy.
Yeah, and not only that, life was a lot slower back then.
True.
Just the pace of life, and now we live in a microwave TikTok society where like we want our a dopamine hit within 30 seconds so we can scroll to
Yes.
the next thing. And so you got to get to the point faster because people aren't
Hmm.
ready to just sit and stew in a story the way they used to.
Yes. If you want to sell millions and millions, if you want to tailor and cater to those people who like a nice slow burn, then you'll sell fewer books, but they will be very, very happy and loyal customers if you give them what they want. Um,
Let's talk about emotional questions versus plot questions. What do you think readers
hmm.
care about more?
Well, I think if you do a good job of giving them a character to care about, they're going to care more about those emotional questions. It's interesting though, because there is a segment of reader probably who likes war or very heavy sci-fi who may argue this point about plot being more interesting. But I think for the most part, people want those emotional questions because they want we've talked before about character being king, and you want to feel invested in the goings on. And the way that you do that is to have those emotional questions. Are they going to choose mercy, right? As opposed to who killed the king? I feel like the question about should you choose mercy is more interesting. And
Right.
I think even in a murder mystery, it's the usually a successful murder mystery series is going to at least have a detective that people care
Cares.
about
Yeah.
those emotional questions. If you've never read Murder on the Orient Express, I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a very interesting portrait of Hercule Poirot and his struggle in that book. He has a struggle, and that is what is actually compelling about that narrative, as much as the tricky plot twists that are in that story.
And if you can tie the plot questions into an emotional question, then you get something really powerful.
I agree. And it looks like Catherine Carroll agrees with you too. She says you need both, and the amount depends on the genre. Absolutely. I think you're
Because I
right.
was thinking of the movie Alien when you said sci-fi, and
Ah,
I was thinking of fear. Fear is an emotion, right? And
mm-hmm.
that movie just keeps you in fear, like the whole way through it, really.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And some people like that kind of thing. That was not my cup of tea, but so let's talk about questions are everywhere if you know where to hide them.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I guess we're talking about mystery because when you think about questions and you think about writing, I think you immediately think of mystery, mostly because a big question mark is usually the way that they categorize, come over here and look for mystery. And here's a big question mark because you want to find out who committed the crime,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
But I don't think that questions are relegated to just mystery. We touched on this, earlier in the episode. I don't think you have to um, limit yourself just because you're not writing mystery.
Yeah, and I think that there can be elements of mystery in other genres. Even though
Yeah.
you're writing a mystery genre, like if you're writing fantasy, there can still be a sense of mystery about it. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
questions. Like I'm thinking of the scene, and I don't know which one of the Hobbit series this was in, but it was the female elf that came. Like they
Mm.
were in the woods, and this female elf came and healed somebody, and I'm like, it's kind of murky in my mind, but I remember her. And I remember the question of like, who is she? Why is she there? And why is she doing this? And how is she able? Like, there was just so many questions that came when she just suddenly appeared at that moment. And so there
Yeah,
could be that little air of mystery, even if you're writing a fantasy or a romance or whatever.
I agree, and I think, it brings me back to the days of old when, NaNoWriMo would kind of, like, send you a plot twist or something, just to throw into your book to kind of help you create those questions. You can have something surprising happen in your book, and give yourself some questions to answer.
Yeah.
But also teach you a lot more about your characters and maybe where your plot is going in a low point.
Yeah, and if we're writing character-driven books, because we talk about a lot about character and character is king. So if it's a
Mhm.
character-driven story, then we have to talk about relationships
Yeah,
and how
agree.
questions can come up in the course of the relationships that are important to your character.
Yeah, so let's say, in a scene, it's chapter 3 or something, and your main character is walking and her husband calls and she doesn't take the call. Okay, what
Yeah.
is immediately the first thing you think, Tina?
Why is she avoiding his
Why is she right? Why doesn't she take the call? If somebody comes into a room and treats somebody poorly, well, why? Is this out of character for the person? Are they having a bad day? Um, think of how your brain immediately reacts when you are people watching
Yeah.
and the questions that just come to mind, right?
Right, like
Why
that
is
couple
that
that was
toddler having a
having the
melt?
fight, and then they stopped when you walked into the room. Yeah.
Yes, you can,
Or you
look
could go the
through.
opposite way. They could be someone who's not supposed to be together, and they were getting a little touchy-touchy,
Oh, boy, and then
and then
you walk
stopped
in.
when you walked into the room. There
Mhm.
still would be, like, tension in the room that you would have to try to figure out what the reason was.
Yeah, because I think as much as people love trying to solve problems, I think readers love trying to solve people. They want to know what is going on here. Why are these people behaving this way to each other? What is going on, essentially? So I
Right.
think
Why
that's
did she
good.
tell that lie?
Yes, yes. What are their motives at
Yeah,
work here? Mhm. And I
right.
think you can have these things happen in one chapter, but wait until the next chapter to answer the why.
Yeah,
When she comes home, you find out why she's ignoring all of his calls in the previous chapter,
because he
right?
calls her 20 times a day, and she's annoyed. So, that just came to my head.
Well, that's these are the questions that are way more compelling than just the actions.
Yeah. So let's talk about questions about the world.
Questions about the world. You mean the world the characters are living
Yeah,
in?
yeah. Like, what
Yeah.
could be some questions that you could hide in there?
I just keep thinking, so let's say your characters open a creaky wooden door and so there's cobwebs and there's what looks like an abandoned breakfast, except, you know, the critters have gotten to the food or whatever.
Yeah.
Immediately, questions come to your mind. So if you can paint a scene like that, for your readers, that's going to evoke a lot of curiosity and is going to keep them reading. And the trick of it, I think, maybe the art of it is knowing how long you can kind of drag something like that on. It's like Catherine Carroll says, it's very genre specific.
Yeah.
I don't think that a romance can really bear too many mysterious subplots carrying on for way too long. Although I could be wrong. But there are interesting questions. You know, Jen has a lot of her heroines moving into a new place, a new world that's different from their home. And the questions that that evokes, what are the people going to be like there? And I know that's less about necessarily the physical space, but the community of a place really does affect the character
Right.
of that world.
And when you were talking about a cupboard a minute ago, I automatically thought about Narnia.
Oh,
And how
yeah.
they opened the cupboard and they went in and they went through the back of the cupboard into another world. Like,
Mhm.
so many questions when I first read that. They did a really good job of like, what is this? Like, what
And
is
I
going
think
on?
And I think here's the one time where discovery writers maybe have it a little bit over the plotters. Because if you just sit down and start writing, sometimes you can surprise yourself. And sometimes the questions that naturally bubble up can enrich your story and can reveal things to you that you might not have explored had you been on a really strict, now I have to write this and now I have to write that. But just not very often that I get to tout the pantser way of life. So I'm gonna take my opportunities when I get them.
Well, I heard somebody say that everybody plots. Some people plot previous. That's not before they write, and some people plot after. Because when you pants, you still have to take what you've written and put it into a structure. So anyway, so let's talk about questions about faith.
Yeah, especially if you are a Christian, obviously, or if you are writing to Christian markets.
Yeah.
Um, I think that questions about faith are very important because if your faith is going to touch your worldview, which this is when I meet somebody who is a Christian, it's I don't typically meet a lot of people who just kind of like go to church to check the box. I usually meet people where they are calling themselves Christian, and then that means something about the way that they live. It means something about the way that they interact with other people. And I think those same questions can apply to your characters. What is your character's worldview? Maybe they are the person who goes to church and that's sufficient. Their faith does not come out of that Sunday experience. But tell us or evoke us to wonder. Show
Mhm.
us the doubts of the pastor. The missionary who isn't praying. Why? Make us ask why?
Mhm.
Um, a very common question that uh, I think in real life people ask is how or why would God allow this terrible scenario,
Yeah.
right?
And I think that if you have characters that are questioning their faith or questioning God because they've just experienced something terrible or these things, this pulls readers in because these are the things that we all deal with in real life.
Mhm.
No matter how strong your faith is, something can come along that can shake it up.
Oh
If you
boy.
if you
Mhm.
if you're out there in the world living life. And so
Yeah.
I think it's a daily question. If you're a Christian, sometimes it's a daily question of, is my faith going to be strong today? Or am I going to give in to doubts? Or am I going to, give in to
And
temptation or whatever the case may be?
yeah. Yeah, and oh boy, that's what's really the trickiest thing. And we try to talk about it, and I think we do a pretty good job, but how to write realistically and because some Christian people are like, I don't want to read bad things, but you can't have a plot without those bad things. And so sometimes these internal questions can be helpful to make that possible without having to create a plot that makes people uncomfortable. Am I making sense?
Yes. And I think there's a reason why the Apostle Paul said, I die daily, because every day we have to get up and make this choice that we're going to live our faith. And when you pull that into your character's story, I think it makes them so relatable to your reader. All those questions that we have.
Oh, Tina, we have a new chatter, Susan Furlong. Hello.
Hello. She said I think she meant to. Oh, I agree. I think bad things are necessary for a faith arc. Of course. Yeah. If you pray for more faith, God's going to give you a reason to need faith. I always used to joke and say, don't pray for patience.
Right.
Because God will give you 3 teenagers in your house at once. He'll give you a reason to need it. Or 3 toddlers, or you know what I'm saying? Like he's gonna give you a reason to practice patience if you ask him to help you with your patience.
Yes, Catherine Carroll, there's a spectrum of bad things as well as the way that they are presented. Yes. And this is when we have our episodes about hurting your characters. Like basically something has to happen in your book or it really isn't going to be worth reading. Right.
Right.
But we've covered that sort of ad nauseum as a topic. It's one of our favorites to cover, but you're right. There's definitely a spectrum and you are making that promise to your readers from your cover, from the genre that you market in, from your chapter 1 of what kind of experience they're going to be getting. Somebody who picks up a book based on the Aliens movie is not wanting the same experience as someone who picks up one of Catherine's beautiful little romances there. So yeah, you have to certainly know your audience and not break the promise that you made to them.
Right. So let's talk about questions readers ask before characters do. Storytelling's secret weapon, it says on our outline.
Yes. Okay, so like what would be a really good example of this? Okay, so let's say the character in the book gets mail and the readers know that there's an important letter in there and the character hasn't opened the letter. Like something like that can just drive your reader crazy. Oh, I hate like the misunderstanding trope where like a single conversation would clear everything up and it would solve this big, but it is a very effective tool. And not everybody is like me. Some people really love because that's enough tension to like keep them reading is when are they going to finally figure out that it was all just a big misunderstanding?
Yeah. Yeah, I've read books like that and it does pull you in and it does like, come on.
Yeah. And the way we've got it written here is it, yes, it makes the reader lean forward, right? Like, so that would be if you're watching a movie, you're leaning forward on the edge of your seat, just waiting for that moment, you know? Yeah. The soap operas are great at that. That's, you know, cliffhangers, you know? Yeah. All those little vignettes of the 2 people in the same room and they're just not talking about the giant elephant in the corner. It's just so exasperating.
I'll never forget. I don't even remember what movie it was. It was an animated movie that my grandchildren were watching, and there was literally an elephant sitting in the corner, like going around like it wasn't there.
And nobody's going to talk about the elephant in the room. That's great.
It was hilarious. Okay, let's move on to our third point so we have time to talk about it a little bit.
All right.
And that is don't answer the wrong questions too soon.
Oh, yeah. That's nothing will kill curiosity faster than like rushing to explain everything. You know, and it's because I feel like readers get a great idea for a story and then they just cannot wait to give you that punchline. It's almost like telling a joke and learning comedic timing. right?
Yeah.
You've got to give the setup enough time to breathe and then finally hit them with the punchline. But
Yeah.
people get so excited and it's adorable and I love it. It's like the enthusiasm of a little kid who found like a lizard or something and they want to get the information to you as quickly as possible. Wasn't that a great story idea? But yeah, now you've robbed me of the hour and a half or so that I could have been reading and reveling in the want to know.
And discovering it for yourself. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Now, I don't know. We've got in here that fantasy writers especially struggle here. Do you have any feedback about that? Because I'm not sure why that would be.
I think there's a temptation to put all the world building right in the beginning so that
Mm-hmm.
everybody understands how your magic works and like
Oh, yeah.
just like completely like kind of info dump your world building because let's face it, if you're a fantasy writer that does world building, you're excited about world building and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I thought of this world and I want to tell you all about it
Mm-hmm.
instead of giving it a little bit at a time as it's pertinent to the story, as the reader needs it to understand what's happening in the story and
I see
dragging
that.
it out. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's probably why that's one of the things they struggle with.
Um, Okay, Susan says, why do you decide the timing of reveals? Is it just a feeling? I think that's the hardest thing is suspense. Well, it depends on if you're a plotter or a pantser. So here's the thing that I've realized that the reason that I am a pantser is because the amount of books that I have read, I feel like I have a good feeling, as you would say in the chat, or intuition, or just what feels natural to me in the progression of okay, Susie is on her way to the store and drops her wallet and does not understand that she dropped her wallet. Well, my brain just kind of will have Susie interact with other shoppers, will have Susie have a whole lot of things happen before she realizes that she dropped her wallet. And I just feel that. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, somebody else might tell you that if you were plotting that scene out, she should find her wallet about 80% of the way through the scene. So there's a couple of different ways to approach it just based on what kind of a writer that you are. I'm sure there's kind of like a mathematical way to do it. But then again, this is also where the craft of writing comes in and how you know, if you're a pot maker, you have to break a lot of pots before you make one that'll hold water. And so writing every day will help you to develop those instincts. What do you
And
say,
good beta
Tina?
readers, like having somebody that will read your stuff and tell
Mm-hmm.
you, like, I felt like that was too soon, or I felt like that took too long, or
Very good. I agree. Mm-hmm. And then that way you can get a check on your intuition.
okay. So let's talk about dumping backstory in chapter one, which we just kind of talked about. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
Yeah.
if you dump a bunch of backstory into chapter one, that you kind of lose that same momentum. Although I have read some really well done things where you have like a prologue with the backstory, and then
Mm.
and now 10 years later kind of thing, you actually get into the story. So I like to say, let's follow the rules, but let's also know when to break them.
Agree. I totally agree. Before we get more into that, Piper says she goes by way of feeling when she tries to reveal things, but also her writing group helps by letting her know where they have questions and how urgently the questions have to be answered. So yes, agree. Agree. Your community is a very good resource. But yeah, Tina, you just said something. Oh, learn the rules and then learn how to break them. Yeah, because you don't want to do the rule is don't dump a lot of character backstory into chapter one.
Hmm.
Now, once you feel like you've broken enough pots, I don't know what that benchmark is for you personally. You've published 3 novels and sold more than 100 copies to strangers of each novel. I don't know. To when you feel like you personally can afford to break this rule. Okay.
Did it on my first book, so
Well, There you go.
I had the prologue written before I knew what the story was gonna be. So,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know, the
Yeah.
prologue informed the story. So, I mean, it's a rule, it's a general rule of thumb, but there's also time and place and a reason to break them all.
Yeah, and I will say, as just a warning that we like to give occasionally to new writers, don't hand this book to your mom, your brother, your sister, your dad, your cousin, people who are super duper close to you, and then be crestfallen when they don't read it, can't read it, don't like it, whatever, because, Prophet is never accepted in his own country. It's just not, especially if they don't read your genre. Good gravy. Find someone whose feedback you can trust, because there's someone who would actually pay money to read your book,
Yeah.
right?
And
Not pay
also,
money to
your mother
support you.
might give you positive feedback where it's not deserved.
I was just going to say your mother would pay money to have your book, for sure she would, but just to support you. Find your readers and have them give you that feedback.
Okay, and then another thing is revealing the villain too soon. This is another one I feel like know when to break this rule because,
Mhm.
like if you ever watch Columbo, like you know who the villain is. Like the first scene of the episode is always the bad guy doing the murder. And you know exactly what happened and the draw of the show was watching Columbo fumble his way into the answer, even though like I think he was just pretending to fumble his way into the answer. And the way that he would do that was the draw, even though you already knew.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and also knowing who the villain is too soon. Well, I mean, for sure in mystery, that's going to be sort of a wild choice. But there's other advice where you kind of have to introduce that villain early so that you've got the conflict and the tension that you need. So
Yeah.
I think this advice is going to be very genre specific, and it's going to very much be based on what your goals are for the book. What are the bigger questions that your book is asking? Like a Columbo is not the big question of Columbo is not who did it.
Mm-mm.
The big question of Columbo is how will Columbo behave
Figure
and
it
act
out.
and figure it
Yeah.
out, right?
Mhm.
So are you? What is the big question of your book? And those little questions should just support you on the journey to answering it.
Okay. It is. We're running out of time. So I just want to bring up this quote from Alfred Hitchcock that we have in our outline because I think it's really good. And he said, there is no terror in the bang, only in the anticipation of it.
Yeah,
And so
that's
this
really
is
good.
real, like, if you think about that, like, if you reveal things too soon, you miss out on that anticipation. Like,
Yes.
you need that anticipation that from the question before you hit them with the bang.
Yes, and this is why Catherine Carroll needs to keep her mouth closed when she's watching Hallmark movies with other people, because she says she usually knows who the villain is before the first commercial, because it's always the person in the background who seems good.
Yep.
She's ready to spoil it already at the first commercial.
Awesome. Okay, let's move on now, to the feeding of the back so that we have time for that because like I said, we are running out of time. So Jamie, do you wanna tell us, uh, what our prompt is, why we do this, and, what you wrote?
Sure, we do this because we like to show everybody that it's really not possible for someone to steal your awesome book idea. Because why? How does this exercise prove that? It's because we are given the same prompt and the same amount of time to write. And every single time we come up with completely different takes on the prompt. And in addition, we do this to keep ourselves actually writing. As I sort of hinted at, I wouldn't be writing at all if it was not for this exercise. For 15 minutes before the show, we set a timer and we write. And then we come here and share with the world unedited. And for that reason, we give only positive feedback on these submissions. I think that covers it, right, Tina?
Yeah, and I wanted to add that even when we have a sentence we have to use word for word, we always come up with stuff that's completely different.
It's crazy, really, honestly.
Yeah.
Okay, so today we had 5 words as our prompt. The words were paper, east, heart, connection, and suburb. Here is what my brain generated about that. Dad flicked the switch on the stick lighter and applied its flaming end to the stream of propane. I heard the familiar whoosh of the grill catching. Your mom will be out here in a minute fussing at me to get this going. Ah, I said. We made our way to the cluster of resin chairs my parents kept in the front of the garage and sat. My dad took his usual survey of the happenings on the street. I remember when moving to this suburb was a dream come true for me and the people I worked with in Detroit. Yeah, I said, even though I had no idea what my dad was talking about. As far as I knew, Sterling Heights was just fine, just as good a place to live as anywhere else. That was before I had lived anywhere else. When I was on the farm, I had no idea places like this existed, with all the houses on top of one another. If you would have told me then that I would have actually saved up my hard earned money to live in such a place, I would have called you a liar. He chuckled. Only took me a couple of years of city living to change that tune. He shook his head, then rested his chin in the crook of his thumb and his index finger. After a few moments, he lifted his gaze to meet mine. Cities are no good. No? I hadn't spent much time in this city. He shook his head again. People really stacked up on each other there. No light really coming in because the buildings are so tall. Had me a little one-room place. That was good enough for survival, I guess, but it wouldn't do for your mom. He fell silent. From the little radio he kept on a shelf in the back of the garage came the sound of Martha Reeves and the Vandellas singing, dancing in the street. To me, that sound was the city. It had always been. The music of Motown was the soundtrack of my youth and oriented me solidly in the region, even though it would be several decades before I could appreciate that fact. Mom came out. She held a tray of hamburger patties in one hand. She placed her other hand on her hip. So do you think it's about time to get the grill going, or? No, I don't think it's time to get the grill going, my dad mocked, even as he stood and scuffed his way over to take the tray of hamburgers from her. Dad lit the grill a few minutes ago, I explained. Time's up. That's it.
I feel like that's autobiographical.
Sort of. It could have happened to me, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The suburbs of Detroit.
Yep.
Motown. Yeah.
Yes.
You can really get a feel for this neighborhood and the people that live there. And you didn't have to tell me that they worked for General Motors.
Mm-hmm. Well, my mom General Motors and my dad Chrysler. Yep. Yep. Mm-hmm. Auto workers. My dad likes to tell the story that he heard that the factory workers were making $5 an hour. And he thought if he made $5 an hour, he'd be set for life. And that was when he was living in Kentucky, right? And so he came up to the Motor City to make his fortune. And that is how I was able to afford my solidly middle-class upbringing.
I think that's a lot of people's stories. I've heard some version of that story over and over again where I knew these people that were actually itinerant farmer. Like they would go from farm to farm to pick produce. And then heard about jobs in Michigan, and that's how they ended up here working for Buick, actually. So,
well, we didn't always get Jordache jeans, but we always had plenty of food. We were well clothed. We lived in a good neighborhood. I mean, like the union jobs back in the day really made a life for a lot of people possible.
Right, and you really painted that picture.
Thanks, I appreciate
that.
What did you do with these 5 words, Tina?
Well, I kind of went the opposite direction. So let me read it.
All right.
Life was hard out in the wilderness, but Connie had no desire to live in a suburb with their manicured lawns and cultivated flower beds. Give her the fireweed growing free any day of the week. Her heart was here in the wild with the evergreens and birch, the milkweed, and the forest floor. On paper, it all sounded so romantic, But at moments like these, slogging through the rain toward the barn, her extra tough boots making sucking sounds as she pulled each step out of the mud, she opened the barn door and made her way to where the cows stood expectantly in their stalls, their udders swollen and ready. A sigh escaped as she pulled the stool next to Bessie, positioned her silver pail, and began to milk. The arthritis in her hands protested the squeezing, but it had to be done. Besides, didn't they say movement was the best medicine for arthritis? Keep those joints moving, keep that synovial fluid pumping into them. She listed all the things she hoped to accomplish today to distract her mind from the ache. After turning the cows out to graze, she'd check the duck house for eggs and throw them some grain. Then she'd go to the rabbit pen, clean it, feed the rabbits, and put down fresh straw. Throw the droppings she scooped up in the sieve she'd made from wire mesh in an old window frame to separate the pellets from any straw or dirt, then throw those pellets into a 5-gallon pail of water. Rabbit poop soup, she called it, the perfect fertilizer. After taking the eggs and milk inside, cleaning the eggs, straining the milk, and putting them into jars in the refrigerator, she'd check the garden, not something she relished doing in this soaking rain that hadn't stopped for days. The sound of barking dogs pulled her from her to-do list. She listened, trying to determine if they were just calling a warning to some wandering porcupine or if it was something more serious. Their barking just kept rising in pitch, and Connie rose from the stool, heading toward the barn door to check what the disturbance was. Before she could get there, she heard the grunting and then the angry roar of what she knew was a bear. One of the dogs let out a squeal of pain, and Connie ran toward the door, grabbing her rifle from the hook on the wall on her way, and then the timer went off.
Ooh, very good examples of just what we were talking about today. So many questions. Like, obviously, suburbs exist, so it's kind of like modern, but you do wonder about a sense of like, how did she get there? Why is she homesteading? Well, obviously, she likes it. But anyway, all of those questions are, and then to leave us because of the timer or whatever, wondering, is the dog going to recover? Is she going to get the bear? What will happen? Very excellent, actually, demonstrating all of these questions like we were talking about. So good job, for real.
Yeah, I didn't do it on purpose. I just
That's what happens, right? Because if you write things happening, the questions come. Yeah, very good.
Yeah. And I was like going down this list, and I'm like, okay, we gotta have something. Like, I think it's time for something to happen other than
When suddenly, yeah. Now you got a whole bunch of because of that you can write, right?
Yeah, you talk about having that feeling of knowing when like you need a transition from me like building up her everyday life to something coming in and changing it.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was really good timing. Piper really likes rabbit poop soup. That was also one of my favorites. Is this something that
thing? So,
huh?
That is an actual thing.
I was going to ask, did you learn about that when you were a bunny owner?
Yes. And you can throw rabbit droppings right into your garden because they don't have, I think it's the nitrogen or whatever it is that burns the plants where you use like compost, your cow poop or whatever. Rabbit droppings you can put right on your garden because it doesn't burn those plants. So you just like put it in this pail of water and put a lid on it, and it like, I don't know, ferments. I don't even know what the word is. And then you can just pour it right on your garden. It's better than Miracle-Gro.
That's great. And you don't have to worry about aging it or kind of whatever is what you're sort of saying.
Yeah. Okay. So let's transition to our next little section about what's next. So what's next for you, Jamie?
Oh, goodness. I still am not actively working on my writing career, but it's like I shared with everybody during the salon this month. I feel like I'm getting there. Certainly, I have some goals I'm working toward, and probably after my birthday in October, I really think that I will be ready to dig in and do some of this work that's laying ahead of me. But November is coming, and so the writing challenge that we've been doing, and that will also be very helpful to get me back into the groove. Like I really feel like I'm on the eve of embracing the work.
Awesome. I can't
How about
wait.
you?
Well, I've actually been writing.
All
And I've
right.
gotten a couple of little sections of my book done that I've been working on. And I actually was supposed to submit it yesterday. And my granddaughter is taking jujitsu and Muay Thai.
Oh
And
my.
yesterday she had both classes back to back. So I spent 2 hours sitting outside the little place where they have their classes, and they had the door open. So I could hear, I swear this lady is Thai because my sister-in-law is Thai, and she talks just like her, and she even laughs like her. And I just was and she like yells at them, but she's not like yelling at them mean. It's more like motivational yelling, like counting while they're doing like jumping jacks and stuff. So that was fun. And it was also back to the bricks.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Where it was parked, I could see all the old cars and stuff driving by, and the radio station was only 2 blocks north of where I was, and they were like blasting old 80s classics,
80s.
I can't believe the music that I listened to as a teenager is now considered classic.
You're supposed to hear Motown at Back to the Bricks. What is going on? Whatever.
They played a lot of 80s. They played some Motown too. And we saw Mickey Mouse in one of the old cars, like waving.
Nice.
So that was fun.
Sounds inspiring.
I didn't. I was tired when I got back from just sitting in the car for 2 hours, and I went to bed early. So, but I'm writing, so I'm excited about that. And I know you've got to go.
Yes.
So if there's nothing else, that concludes this episode of the Christian Indie Writers Podcast. So until next week, may your pen be prolific, your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.